So you're looking to buy a used MacBook or MacBook Pro? Today I'm going to give you some tips on what to look for. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery, and today we're going to be talking about buying a used MacBook Pro or MacBook. So I've bought many of these computers over the last 10 years or so, and sometimes it's to upgrade and set back free into the ecosystem. Sometimes it's to hold on to until someone like a family or friend needs one, or sometimes it's just for me to use myself. And after buying so many of them, I started to get a nice feel for what to look for, how to know if it's a good deal, and how to know if it's in good shape. So we're going to look at a couple things on this one right here, which I just picked up today. It's a 2012 non-Retina MacBook Pro, and it's in such good shape that it's a good example of me to show you what to look for and the things that I look for when I'm buying something used. So let's say you find something like this on Craigslist or on Marketplace, and you're meeting up with somebody to check it out. You've only got a few minutes to look at a whole bunch of things and to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I look for. Let's start off with looking at the outside of the case itself. So on the front lid here, I look to see if there's any kind of dents or defects. Now, a tiny little dimple isn't going to be the end of the world, but if there's something that you can put a couple BBs into, that's a cause of concern, I guess would be a good way to put it. So just look at the front cover to make sure, the top cover to make sure that there's no dents or dings. Then we're going to flip it over. And same thing. We're going to look for major dents. Now there's going to be plenty of scratches probably on something like this. This one is awfully clean for being 10 years old. So that's why I said it's a good example of what to look for. You can even see that the serial number and everything is very easy to read. The printing there is very easy to read. So this thing has not been worn down at all. No scratches. You can even see the little rubber feet here look like they've hardly ever been rubbed up against anything. So I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. So again, super big dents that you want to be concerned about, but tiny little dings or scratches, that's all normal for sure on this. Now while we're down here on the bottom, we're going to also look at these screws here, and I usually just rub my fingers over them and see if any of them are kind of sticking up and sharp edge. That tells me that someone has taken them out and put them back in and didn't put them all the way in, or they cross-threaded them. It just means that I know that someone has been in here. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe somebody went in there to clean it out. Maybe someone went in there to upgrade something. But if I'm not sure what they did when they opened it, then I may take an extra couple seconds to say, hey, can I grab my screwdriver and take this off and just to look inside real quick. So usually if you feel these screws, it gives you a good idea if they've been tampered with it or not. Alright, next thing we're going to do, still staying on the outside, is we're going to look at all four corners. So aluminum, despite being in metal, is pretty soft, and it doesn't take much to bend that metal or to dent it. So if we look at all four corners here, we're looking to see if there's any major depression. And usually if there's a depression or a dent, then the metal has to go somewhere, right? It doesn't like fall off. So when you bend it, it's going to end up somewhere. So it's going to cause an edge on one of these surfaces here. So looking at all four corners, because 9 times out of 10, if someone drops one of these, it's going to hit a corner first. It's very likely to hit, exactly on one side. So all four corners here are nice and round, nice and smooth. No dents. You're going to look on the case itself and then the screen lid, and all four corners to make sure there's no dents or major damage. Alright, next up we want to look at this side here and look at the ports. On this particular model, we've got a couple USB ports, a mini display port or Thunderbolt port. We've even got a old FireWire port, RJ45 for LAN, and then of course the MagSafe. So I like to look in the MagSafe just to see if the connectors on there are still kind of shiny. There's not a whole bunch of gunk inside there. Now that's easy enough to clean out, but you don't want to see any kind of damage or bending. With the LAN port, same thing. There's 8 little copper conductors or gold conductors in there. Hard to see with the camera, but you can see it with your naked eye. Just make sure they aren't kind of bent around or broken. And then same thing with the USB. Inside the USB port, there's usually like 4 little copper pads in there that you can see. Just make sure that it's not bent. The white little part of the connector, make sure that those are both kind of lined up with each other and one isn't kind of pushed down here. That would tell you that someone had a mouse or something plugged in here with a lot of weight pushing down on it and it bent the inside connector. That's always a bad sign. But these all look pretty good. And then while I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and hit this battery button just to make sure that it does register some battery. Now, assuming that this thing has a charge on it, that's going to depend on how high it goes up. But if they said they fully charged it before they brought it to you, and you push the button and only one little light blinks, then you got to be concerned about the battery. And we're going to look at the battery also once we boot it up. So far this one's looking good. Alright, so before we boot it up and look at the specs and everything inside macOS, I'm going to talk about some of the kind of pre-work you can do, some of the investigation work that you can do before you actually meet up. So this is all going to depend on what you've got picture-wise. So if it's a marketplace ad and they posted some pictures, then some of them will help you, some of them won't. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures on my phone here that I took screenshots of the ad, starting with this one. Now look at all those stickers. That's usually a bad sign. Not that I'm against putting stickers on, but generally speaking, someone puts this many stickers on, they either don't care about their Mac or they're hiding something. So I asked, before I even met up with the person, hey, do you mind taking all those stickers off? And they said, sure, no problem. And I didn't even clean this up at all once I got it home. They did a really good job of taking all the residue off. So I was very happy, and I was actually very surprised when I met them that it was that clean. So the next thing I'm going to show you is this picture from the ad. And if you can get one of these in the ad or have them send it to you, the About screen, then it's going to help you a lot. It gives you some specs. It lets you know that whatever they're advertising matches what the computer says. And there's even a serial number on there if they don't black it out. You can go onto a website and search the serial number to see what kind of specs the Mac originally shipped with. So that's going to help you out a lot, especially if you're able to match that up against the actual product once you have it in your hands. You know, boot it up, look at the About screen, make sure that it matches what you've been doing your research on. Alright, so let's go ahead and open this thing up and look at the inside, still looking at the physical stuff. And the first thing I'm going to do is see how well the hinge holds. And what I'm looking at when I open this and close it is I don't want any kind of slack in between once you start lifting and once the hinge starts resisting you. So you want it to resist you right away when you're lifting it, and resist you right away when you're pushing it down. That's kind of a hard thing to explain, but you'll know it when you feel it. If you have a sloppy MacBook screen and nobody wants a sloppy hinge, then that can be indicative of a lot of wear and tear, so the person opened and closed it a lot, or it can be indicative of some damage happening inside, you know, structural damage, maybe a screw getting loose inside the hinge itself. So in this case, this hinge is very firm, so I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take a look at the keyboard. And when I look at the keyboard, one of the things that I look for is excessive wear and tear on the keys themselves. So sometimes all these nice backlit keys, some will look, you know, well worn out to where you can hardly see the letter when it's backlit. And these keys all look basically brand new. So no concern there. Now I have seen, and this is funny, I find it funny sometimes, I've seen the keys WASD really worn on a MacBook which tells me this person was doing some gaming, probably some first-person shooter, maybe some Fortnite or something, which, hey, to each their own. Maybe it's dad's laptop and you're borrowing dad's laptop and that's the only thing you get to play your games on. But a MacBook isn't exactly known to be a gaming laptop, as we all know. So when I see that, it concerns me a little bit that maybe there was some excessive, hard striking of the keys on these letter keys as the person's moving around. And not only that, but since this isn't made to be a gaming laptop, the graphics card in here is not really beefed up to be used for a long time at high temperatures. So if you're playing some kind of a game, a shooter game or something like that, that's going to make that graphics card really hot. And if you don't have it vented well, that can actually damage the GPU, and you'll end up getting some kind of streaking usually on the screen. So make sure you look for that. But usually if you see these worn keys here, that's going to tell you that maybe that's a potential problem down the road. Alright, so the hinge is good, the keyboard's good. We're going to look at the trackpad real quick, and just to rub the finger around the edges of it to make sure that the trackpad isn't popped up any. That can be indicative of a battery going bad, or a battery has gone bad at some point. So in this case it's nice and flush, so I'm not concerned about that. So now it's time to start looking at some of the software and letting it tell us some things too. Alright, so since it's facing right at us, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the screen. And you just want to look for any kind of damage. A lot of times, if it's a cracked screen or a repaired screen, it'll be pretty evident. Sometimes if you rub your finger around the outside edge, and if you feel anything that feels weird, then maybe the screen has been replaced at some point. And if it was done right, there's really no concern. But if it wasn't done right, then obviously you might want to steer clear of that. When you're looking at the inside by the keyboard itself, look at all these inside edges also to see if there's any dents. A lot of times someone will leave their phone or a pencil or pen or a book or something like that and close the book and close the lid real quick because they're late for something, I don't know. And what's going to happen, right? They're going to push it down, and whatever's there isn't going to budge, and it's going to dent the aluminum here. That's going to be a bad thing, but it's going to do a lot more damage to the glass itself. So take a look at that and make sure there's no noticeable dents or divots along the outside edge. Alright, so finally the moment we've been waiting for. Let's go ahead and check out the specs. So we're going to go up to this Open Apple menu here. Hit the About This Mac. Now this screen doesn't look like the other one I was showing you before from the screenshot, and that's because the person had called up Apple and asked them how to reset their laptop, and they had them do a recovery where it went back to the original operating system that it came with. So if we hit the more info, it's going to look a little bit more like it, but the screenshot that they sent me had Mac OS Sierra, and this is obviously a much older version. So really, I just want to look at the specs to make sure they match. So all this matches, the serial number matches, so that's a good thing. It matches what I was expecting to see when I was willing to meet the person and potentially buy this MacBook. So that's good, it all matches. We're going to come up here and look at the battery real quick and click on the battery. And really I just want to make sure that it doesn't say service battery or needs attention or something like that. And I've got a video that I posted the other day that tells all about the battery conditions and how to figure out what's wrong with the battery. So if you get one of those, you can watch that and see if it's something that you want to deal with. But in this case, it all looks good. And we're going to double check that by going into the system report here. And we're going to go to power. And the power is going to tell us all about our battery. So the first thing I want to see is the condition. And the condition says normal. If it said anything other than normal, then you'd have one of those exclamation points up here in that menu I showed you. The next thing I'm going to look at is a cycle count. And the cycle count on this particular battery, I believe, was 500, was what it was rated for. So 130 cycles is not bad. It's about, what, 1/3 or 1/4 of the rated cycles, so I'm not concerned about replacing this battery yet. And then the other thing is the full charge capacity. So if I bought a brand new battery, the full charge capacity would be about 6,000 milliamp hours, and this one's showing 5,400, so that's fine. Once they start getting a couple thousand down, like 4,000, 3,000, then you got to be concerned about potentially replacing that battery. Now, all the stuff that we looked at inside macOS, like the battery information, the specs, the serial number, all that stuff is all dependent on you being able to get into the computer. So you have to make sure that when they show up, the laptop is charged so you can actually power it up. And if they did it right, then you'll come up right up to the, hey, this is a brand new MacBook screen. And it's basically the welcome screen for macOS or OS X. And you're going to have to say, hey, listen, can I go ahead and get all the way through these screens and create my account, just a dummy account maybe, and get all the way in so that I can go ahead and do this? Because without being able to get into this screen, then yes, you can, if you can read the serial number on the bottom side, you can do a little bit of, Googling with that. But it would be really nice, because that doesn't tell you the full story. It'd be really nice to get all the way into this screen, look at the battery, look at the serial number, look at the specs, and make sure everything is good to go. So for that, you're going to have to go click next, go through all the setup stuff. It may take you 5 minutes. Maybe you're at a Panera Bread or something like that. You can jump on their Wi-Fi if you need to. Some versions of the macOS installer don't require any internet at all, so you can just click right through them. Some of them you have to hook it up to the internet, so maybe you can tether it to your cell phone or something if you have a tether plan. Whatever you need to do to get into this screen and just check it out. Now, everything I've showed you so far in this Mac would be good for any of these older style unibody Macs. This one is a 2012, so anywhere from 2012 backwards would be identical to this pretty much. If you have a newer one, then most of the stuff I showed you, the things to look for, will hold true. But if the new one has butterfly keyboards, then I would do one more step of going through and testing every single key, because those butterfly keyboards were known to be defective. They'd get a little bit of dust underneath the key and then it wouldn't depress, especially around the space bar and the B type area. So I would open up, just a text document and just type every single letter, every single number, and make sure everything worked. And if the person isn't willing to let you do that, then they may be trying to hide something. So I hope you got something out of this video. Hopefully you found some good information, some good tips. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. That helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. This is the first in a couple different videos I'm going to be doing for this one. I've got some plans for this one to do some upgrades and some other kind of neat stuff. So hit that subscribe button and check it out when I do those other videos. Don't forget to also check out our Family Geekery Podcast, me and my daughter's podcast every Tuesday, and talk about computers, video games, movies, TV shows, all kinds of stuff. So check that out wherever you find your podcasts. So thank you again for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.